Hello, and welcome to the Long Islander Newspaper Podcast. I'm your host, Samuel Ashkenazy. Today, as always, I'm with Gina Florentino-James. Gina, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. I'm really happy to be here.
I'm so glad you're here with me because it is Oscar weekend, and I need somebody to talk about all of this with. Before we get into the Oscars, I just wanted to say, as always, you could subscribe to the Long Islander newspaper for just $45 a year. We deliver right to your door and we cover everything from local politics, sports, special interest stories, and of course, weekly movie reviews from yours truly. Follow the Long Islander on Facebook and follow us on Instagram at Long Islander News. So, Gina, what's going on with you?
Well, it was interesting that you should advertise the Long Islander. Yesterday, I met an editor, a former editor at Newsday, and I told her that I was writing some articles for the lifestyle section. And she just said the Long Islander is a great paper. So I think people should know that. It gives a lot of good stuff regarding local news and um, movies, as you said. And it's just a fun little paper.
Yeah, we've been around for such a long time. I think we were founded in 1838, so I mean, we are the staple of this area and you know, we're just trying to keep the bus rolling, and we have a lot of fun doing this and we love working for this paper and it's truly a blessing to be reporting for such a foundational piece of the community. So jumping into it, like I said, this is Oscar weekend. For me, the Academy Awards is my Super Bowl. Um, I mean, the ratings have struggled year after year, but for me personally, I've never really lost interest. I mean, this is where I get to see all of the artists, the writers, directors, producers, the actors that I all thought did amazing work this year. This is when I get to root for them, and they get the chance at recognition at something more than just beyond a box office number. So I always find this super exciting, and I think when I talk to the average audience member, I hear a lot of discouraging things. I hear these. I've lost faith in Hollywood. They don't make good movies anymore. It's all about messaging, and I'd really be lying to you if I told you I hadn't walked out of any movies with similar misgivings. I mean, I've definitely said similar things before. But I think the blessing of being a film critic is I get to try a little bit of everything. And I watch movies from Japan to France. I watch every comedy and every horror film. And I get to see what different studios are going for. Who has a signature? Who doesn't? Who has, an identifiable look and feel? And the truth of it is when I look back at the end of the year, I am always actually quite impressed with the majority of the movies I saw. Um, and there's always exceptions to that, but I think that the past few years have been really good for cinema, and that's not really what the consensus feels like all the time. But I'm also aware that people can't see as many movies as me, you know, and I do think that part of it's a sampling issue, right? A lot of people, like we talked about Captain America, I think 2 weeks ago, and or last week. I'm not even sure anymore. Honestly, that's all blurring together. But um, the thing with like Captain America was like Marvel makes these marketing campaigns around these movies that makes them events, and you have to go with all of your friends, and you know all of you and your friends aren't going to go see The Brutalist, right? It's not the type of movie that draws that type of hype. And yet, it's a really great picture. And in the coming weeks, I'm working on an article right now about how we could get back to the movies, without necessarily the financial or hassle of getting to the movies more than once a week, much less more than once or twice a year. And I think that there is a way to do it, and you know there is community there, even in a small theater with not a lot of people. There is that sense of the shared experience between all of us, and I think if more of us start sharing that experience, that consensus around what is a good movie and if there's more or less of them right now will change. You know, as we dive into the nominees for the Oscars this season, um, I find almost all of them to be really fantastic, and I truly hope that even if you don't watch the ceremony this weekend, I truly hope that you give these movies a chance because I think they deserve your attention, and I think they're worthy of your time, and I think for the most part, you'll enjoy them. You know,
How did people get to see some of them?
Well, look, I mean, we're coming to the end of the circuit right now, so a
Hmm.
lot of them are starting to hit streaming, but there are still a
Okay.
couple that are like hanging around in theaters if you could catch them. I know like Anora was re-released in a limited release. Um, The Brutalist is still playing at a couple theaters, although very few. Wicked you could still find in theaters,
Okay.
of course,
Hmm.
because it's a juggernaut at the box office. Um, but I think a lot of them are starting to hit streaming. I know. Let's just see out of the list here. Conclave is on Peacock. Amelia Perez is on Netflix. Um, this Substance is available on Movie. Mubi, Mubi. It's a newer streaming platform. They actually have a lot of great content. I highly recommend checking them out.
Oh,
Um, so I mean, they are starting to hit the streaming platforms, and I definitely encourage a lot of them because I think they're really good. Also, most of the A24 releases, like I mean, The Brutalist will eventually be on HBO Max because A24 struck this deal with HBO Max, so a lot of their movies are going to go directly to Max. Flow, the Oscar-nominated animated picture this year, that's going to be available on Max if it's not already. Um, so I mean, there's a lot of these. Here's the thing too is I think people also kind of look at Hollywood with this air of, oh, it's loaded with glamour and all these people are elites and rich. And the truth of it is that a lot of the pictures this year aren't made by elites or big studios. Um, case in point, The Brutalist. Brady Corbett, the director and writer of that film, this is really the first major box office hit he's had, and he's openly talked about how this is the first film that he's actually made money off of. Most of the time when you go into these projects, it's really more of a loss than it
mm,
is a gain. Until you are really established at a certain level and you have the backing for it. A lot of times in the independent market, you're fighting just to get the movie made, much less make a profit off of it. So I think it's worth, approaching a lot of these nominees with this air of they're not glitz and glamour. They are made by working people, independent artists that have something to say and only want to entertain you and maybe give you something, to munch on later. Um, So, I mean, without further ado, let's jump into some of the nominees. Because um, all the Best Picture nominees, excluding one, um, are awesome. And we're gonna talk about them right now. So I'm gonna go in alphabetical order, or as alphabetical order as I can. By the way, before I totally forget, the Oscars are this Sunday night. They're gonna be on ABC, and that Sunday night is March 2nd. So be sure to set your calendar and check it out. And before that ceremony starts, I'm going to give you the rundown of all the movies and what my picks for them would be. So we're jumping in with Anora. So Anora is rated R. It's a little over 2 hours. Um, this is a wild picture. It's from Neon, the production company Neon, which is, I have to say, it's very exciting watching Neon right now. I think in general right now, it's kind of an exciting time because you're seeing a lot of these smaller art house studios breaking into the mainstream and starting to get really competitive. Neon and A24 are neck and neck with each other, trying to um, impress audiences and get an audience that, knows and respects them. And I think Neon is on track right now to kind of doing that. Um, so Anora's their really big hit this year or last year, really at this award ceremony, and it stars Mikey Madison as the titular character of Honora. This is written and directed by master independent auteur Sean Baker. He's known for The Florida Project and Tangerine. And Honora is, uh, I mean, full discretion, it's a hard R-rated movie. I would not watch it with your kids. Or kids, I would not watch it with your parents. Um, but Honora follows this erotic dancer who is asked to entertain the son of a Russian billionaire. And it kind of quickly shifts from high paying customer to a whirlwind romance that Honora falls head over heels for this young and naive Russian playboy. Um, that is until his parents hear about the marriage and or their whirlwind romance, and um, they're not too happy. So I'm not going to spoil too much, and there's a lot of movies to get through here. But for me personally, I think Mikey Madison deserves Best Actress, no question, no question. I don't even think there's really any competition. She she might not win, but in my eyes, she is the clear uh, best performance in the female category this year. Um, Everything from her accent to the versatility in the performance. I mean, Honora is truly a roller coaster of emotions. I mean, in every sense of the world, you start on the highest of highs and really, navigate through the lowest of lows. And, um, I've heard people describe it as Pretty Woman meets Uncut Gems, which anybody who's seen both of those movies knows how jarring those two movies are, like juxtaposed with each other, much less in the same picture. Um, so, I mean, I highly recommend it. It is uh, a very visceral film. It is extremely well acted, well written, well directed. It is nominated for 6 Oscars, including Best Actress, Mikey Madison, Best Director, Best Original Screenplay, and Best Editing for Sean Baker, Best Supporting Actor, Yura Borislav, and of course, Best Motion Picture of the Year. Um, I think its predicted wins right now is, according to at least IndieWire, it's predicted to win Best Original Screenplay and potentially Best Picture. I think that would be Neon's first Best Picture win, which would be an incredible feat for that production company. I think would be a really, really incredible win for them. Um, I couldn't recommend Honora more. It is definitely on the top of my list for Best Pictures. I loved it. I mean, I've seen it 3 times now. I highly, highly recommend it, if only just for Maggie Madison's performance, because she's just incredible in it. Moving on to A Complete Unknown. A Complete Unknown is, of course, the Bob Dylan biopic starring Timothy Chalamet. Um, this is directed by James Mangold, who is a very versatile director, but most people will probably know him from Walk the Line, the Johnny Cash biopic. Um, Readers of this paper will know that I am not a fan of Timothy Chalamet. Um, I actually, if I'm being totally honest, I find him to be one of the worst actors of our time. I think he is just god awful in about everything he's been in. This is the one exception where I would actually say he does a pretty good job. Um, Timothy Chalamet has talked about how he practiced these songs for about 5 years before he actually even filmed the movie. And I got to tell you, that is clear. He sounds great. Not that Dylan was ever like a voice of an angel, but I mean, he does sound uh, very much like Dylan. And he plays the part with a lot of conviction. I've seen Dylan in concert live before, and Dylan is not the most sociable, to put it lightly. And Chalamet, I have found to be not particularly very emotive in a lot of his performances, But here, that lack of emotive, uh, traits in his face actually works pretty well here because Dylan is kind of stoic a lot of the time. Um, I don't know if I would award this movie anything, although it is predicted that Timothy Chalamet will win Best Actor for it. Um, I do think it's worthy of nominations. I don't think it's at the top of my list, but um, if you're a Dylan fan, you will probably like the movie. Um, I also think very underrated performance. Ed Norton in this as Pete Seeger is incredible. He does like a really, really spot on um, impression slash impersonation of him. I don't know if they'd like me using that word, but I mean, it's about as close as you could get. So I highly recommended that. I also would say, I mean, me and my dad got to see this on Christmas Day. My dad is an ultra Dylan fan, um, and being that he is such a diehard fan, um, I thought his take would be rather interesting. And his take was that he liked it not as much as the previous Bob Dylan biopic, though. I'm not there. Um, so check it out. I think it's a good picture. It's nominated for 8 Oscars, including Best Actor, Best Supporting Actress for Monica Barbaro, Best Director James Mangold, and Best Motion Picture of the Year. Um, like I said, it's predicted that Timothy Chalamet is going to win Best Actor for it, and I wouldn't be so disappointed with that. Like I said, I mean, I think he's really good in the movie, despite me not being a fan. Um, but I think maybe the next nominee deserves Best Actor a little bit more. That next nominee being The Brutalist. The Brutalist is a very intense picture. It's gotten a lot of conversation about it just because of the length. The movie is 3 hours and 34 minutes. That includes a built in intermission. Um, Adrian Brody stars as Laszlo Toth. This was the Golden Globe winner for Best Picture. Brady Corbett's The Brutalist is a historical epic. It spans over, like I said, it spans over 3 hours. And it tells the story of this Hungarian Jewish architect escaping the Holocaust to start a new life in America. Um, he meets the extremely wealthy Harrison Lee Van Buren Sr., played by Guy Pearce, who will eventually try to exploit him for everything he has. Um, it's a tough picture. I'm not going to lie. I mean, especially as somebody of Jewish descent, um, it it's a difficult story to watch. Um, and Brody's performance is nothing short of stellar. I mean, it's really great. It is very reminiscent of his work in The Pianist. It does feel um, a bit like he's retreading some ground, but that doesn't mean he's retreading the ground poorly. I mean, he knows how to play that role. And I will say, I also think Guy Pearce did an incredible job in this role, although um, he's I mean, I hate to say it, but he's such a terrible person in the picture that it's kind of hard to say like, oh, you should get best actor, best supporting actor for it. I mean, he's such a terrible person. um I think the one problem I had with The Brutalist, because as much as I think it is a great picture, the one problem I had with it comes towards the second half of it. Like I said, there is that built-in intermission, and I do think that the second half of the picture feels somewhat less focused than the first half. And I think the final moments could have maybe been done with a little bit more impact than what we got. That's not to say that it loses all impact. It certainly doesn't. It's a very strong picture. And I don't think it's a complete miss on the landing either. I just think that they maybe could have done a little bit more with it. Um,
Why is it called The Brutalist? Who is the brutalist?
Yeah, so I mean, I think the title is kind of open to a couple interpretations. I mean, Adrian Brody is an architect, like I said, and the type of architecture that he's doing is literally called brutalist
Oh,
architecture.
mhm.
Um, However, I think you could also look at Guy Pearce's character as the brutalist because he's somebody who essentially brutalizes Adrian Brody's character of Laszlo Toth. So I think it's kind of a title with double entendre there. Um, I do think that I realized I was going to crinkle that much. I do think that the title is pretty applicable to both interpretations of it. Um, and I mean, at the moment, it's currently nominated for 10 Academy Awards, um, including Best Actor, Best Supporting Actor, Best Supporting Actress, excuse me, Felicity Jones, Best Director for Brady Corbett, and Best Motion Picture of the Year. Um, right now, IndieWire has it as a toss-up between Adrian Brody and Timothy Chalamet. If it were me voting, I think actually the best actor should go to Coleman Domingo for Sing Sing, but A24 I think kind of bungled the release of that movie and not enough people saw it, and I don't think he's going to win. So if it were my pick, Coleman Domingo aside, I would probably give it to Brody over Chalamet. Right now, it is expected to win Best Director, Best Original Score, Best Cinematography, and like I said, it's a toss up between Best Actor. One thing I do want to also touch on just very briefly is some of the controversy around The Brutalist. Um, After it did its awards run, it came out that there was some AI used in the making of The Brutalist. Now, um, AI has been a very hot topic in the entertainment community right now. There is a lot of fear around it. There is a lot of um, anxiety around the uses of AI. All of the uses of AI I've seen outside of a few examples, I think have actually been exactly what the AI is supposed to be used for. Alien Romulus, which is also nominated this year for Best Effects, used some AI to recreate a actor who's no longer alive. Um, in The Brutalist, they're using AI to supposedly um, enhance some of their accents to make it sound more Hungarian. Um, I, with regard to like the Alien Romulus AI usage, I don't really find that to be as problematic as some people made it out to be. The usage of AI in The Brutalist, though, does feel a little bit concerning because I'm not really sure now if I'm really watching Adrian Brody's original performance or not. Supposedly we are. Supposedly all of the main cast wasn't altered with their AI, but they could also just be saying that. And I think it's definitely worthy of the controversy around it. Is it worthy of stripping it of its nominations and saying it doesn't deserve those awards? I'm not so sure. Um, I think it is problematic, but I don't think it's damaging to the legacy of the picture. And I think that's really where I stand on it, at least right now. We'll see how the AI controversies evolve as we keep going. Um, but I think that in this particular instance, it was used as a tool, which is what they are promising that it's supposed to be, and not, something to replace us. This was, in fact, used as a tool. It wasn't a replacement tactic. Um, it just does feel, it shouldn't even say feel, it just gives me pause, you know? So moving on, um, let's go to Conclave. So Conclave is actually available for streaming right now. It's available on Peacock. Um, it's actually, gained a lot of steam late in this award circuit. Ray Fiennes is playing Cardinal Lawrence in Edward Berger's very taut thriller, Conclave. Um, the Pope has died, and the Vatican must organize a vote, also known as a conclave, to pick the next Pope. Um, I think what's really cool about it is the way Edward Berger directed the movie. Um, he directs it like a thriller. And, I think it's weird because it's like, here's this movie that could easily be really boring. We're voting for the next pope. I mean, if you're not religious, much less Catholic, who cares? And the truth is that the way he directs it really makes you care. You really understand the gravitas and the urgency of this vote because whether you're religious or not, the pope has a lot of power. He has a lot of sway. And what Conclave depicts so beautifully is all of the considerations that have to go into picking that person. And one of the things that I think also really makes the film so particularly intense is its score. It has one of the best original scores I've ever heard. Um, the score is written by Volker Beetelman, or Bertelman, excuse me. Um, I am astonished that he is not the favorite to win right now. Currently, the favorite is The Brutalist. Uh, I do not think that that's correct at all. Volker Bertelmann should absolutely win Best Original Score. No question in my mind whatsoever. Um, Conclave is predicted right now to win Best Adapted Screenplay and Best Editing. Um, I think editing is a stretch when you have something like Wicked in the category also, but Best Adapted Screenplay I think is very fair. Also, just for people that don't know, um, there are two screenplay categories. You have Best Original Screenplay and Best Adapted Screenplay. Simply put, adapted just means that it was based on source material that previously existed. Original Screenplay means that that person wrote it and didn't base it off of anything else. Um, I think that for the Best Adapted Screenplay category, it's I think it could win that, and I think it wouldn't be a bad win. I personally would like to see Nickel Boys win that, but not a lot of people saw Nickel Boys, and I know that. Well, I really loved it. I know that even Gina here didn't love it as much as I did. So we're gonna get to Nickel Boys soon, but I think Nickel Boys could definitely be a very big contender in that category also. Speaking of adapted screenplays, though, it's time to talk about Dune Part 2. One of the things I am really happy about is I actually read Dune before I went to go see Part 2. And the book is admittedly a little bit slow. At least I found it to be a little bit slow. I appreciate all the philosophy going on in it, um, but I found there to be a lot of unnecessary uh, streams of consciousness throughout the book that really didn't add a ton to uh, the plot, really. Which is also why, originally David Lynch's Dune was kind of such a mixed bag. There's so much narration going on in that movie, and there's so much kind of internal dialogue going on that it just kind of uh, became kind of a flat and strange picture that most people have kind of agreed didn't age particularly well. Um, Denis Villeneuve has really brought Frank Herbert's writing to life in a way I think people previously didn't think was possible. And I think Denis Villeneuve should get tons of credit just for accomplishing that. Um, I think the Dune Part 2 concludes in very epic fashion. Um, in the theater, It is a spectacle to watch. If it ever does come back around in theaters and you didn't get the chance to see it in the theater, I do recommend it in the theater. The sound design, the visuals that they're able to get on camera, in particular, is incredible. Um, it is by no means my favorite movie of the year, nor do I think it deserves, um, something like Best Picture. But um, if we're talking about visual effects, I mean, it's definitely at the top of that list. Visually, the movie is striking. Um, it's directed beautifully. The score from Hans Zimmer, which didn't get nominated because of weird Oscar rules, is fantastic. I actually just saw Hans Zimmer in concert with the orchestra, and they did Dune live. It's an incredible piece of music. If you haven't heard it, honestly, just give the soundtrack a listen, because it's I think one of Hans Zimmer's best. Um, it's nominated for 5 Oscars, including Best Production Design, Best Cinematography, Best Sound, and Best Motion Picture of the Year. It will likely win Best Visual Effects also. I don't know if it will win any of the other stuff, truthfully, because I mean, there's a lot of competition in those other categories this year, um, which I think is really exciting. I mean, the fact that Dune, which is such a visually striking movie, has as much competition as it does, I think really speaks to also um, how invested Hollywood is in kind of creating a theatrical experience for the audience, you know? Um, now, unfortunately, our next nominee didn't have much of a theatrical experience, and its release circuit has been nothing but controversy. Um, to be honest, I'm not even sure what to say about Amelia Perez. Oh boy, guys. Look, the at the Oscars, here's the thing. Studios, I think, they're not supposedly this isn't the case, but studios seemingly have the ability to buy nominations. That doesn't mean that they could buy the awards, though. There is still a voting body that votes on who gets to win those nominations. Amelia Perez is a movie that has found an audience strictly in the awards circuit, um, which should be a big red flag. Um, this is a over 2 hour movie. It's a musical that takes place in Mexico, but it was shot in France. The director of the movie, um, I'm gonna absolutely butcher his name if I try to pronounce it, so I'm just gonna not. Um, but he does not speak any Spanish, and he only speaks French. Um, the movie is it feels um gosh, how do I trying to tread on this lightly. It feels like if you asked ChatGPT to um make a plot to specifically um annoy conservative viewers. It's just it's a movie entirely about messaging and yet still gets the message wrong. Um, Zoe Saldana is playing a lawyer. She is kidnapped and brought to a Mexican drug cartel leader who tasks her with setting up transition surgeries for him to become a woman. I have no problem with the transgender community. I am in the LGBT community. Um, the movie gets that representation terribly wrong. The representation of Mexico, it gets terribly wrong. Uh, you know, Basically, the message of the movie can be boiled down to once uh, this drug dealer gang leader, Kingpin, transitions into a woman, she's now a hero that should be celebrated, and uh, she wants to right all of the wrongs of her past, and that's all well and nice. I don't buy it. Um, the performances are, I guess, fine, um, but I mean, this movie got 13 Oscar nominations. It's one shy of the most ever. It has the lowest rating on IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes out of any Oscar nominee ever. Uh, its critical reception has been mixed at best. Um, some people have said, "Oh, well, the film looks good." That's just not an accomplishment these days. I'm sorry. I mean, like we have the best cameras that have ever existed, and lighting tools that you know, are fantastic. So I mean, to sit there and say the movie looks good, I mean, it's kind of like commenting on the set when you like, are invited to a Broadway play and you don't like it. It's like, oh, the set didn't look good. Who cares? I mean, did you pay attention to the story? Did you like it? And the answer is this: the story is just so bad. The musical numbers are god awful. I mean, they make Joker 2 look great. I mean, I really I really struggle to understand what they were going for here. Um, the movie genuinely feels like, oh, you don't like these topics? Well, we're going to shove them in your face as much as possible. And no audience member is just gonna tolerate that. I'm sorry. Like, and the reviews from audiences are pretty uniform. Um, the other thing that I think is very troubling about this is the Spanish language and why it was used and its usage itself. Um, First off, the director, like I said, doesn't speak Spanish, and there are moments in the movie that have been criticized for basically just being gibberish. Um, Selena Gomez has been criticized very heavily for seemingly not knowing Spanish. Um, The director also said on a red carpet interview that he chose Spanish as the language for the movie because it's the language of poor people, which is not good. He also said that he didn't need to do any research on Mexico because he kind of already got what he needed to know. Which, if you ask any Mexican person who saw the movie, they'll tell you that he definitely didn't know enough because he got a lot of it wrong. So, I am, and this, and this hasn't even touched on the main controversy of the movie, which is its star. Um, you know, Amelia Perez herself, Carla Sofia Gascon, has been completely dropped during the awards circuit because of these tweets that she put out. Um, you know, in her tweets, she said, you know, everything from criticizing the Oscars diversity campaigns to sitting there insulting Muslims, and she said something bad about George Floyd during the riots, and like all of these things that frankly should have been vetted before she even got the part. Um, this has been a very frustrating pick from the Oscars, and I think um, without making too big of a deal out of it, I think it has genuinely hurt their credibility going forward, which is very bad considering that they've already had such problems with their credibility in the past. Um, this was a really, really big mistake for the Academy to make, and I think also, I mean, if they wanted to nominate a film um, based on messaging alone, and the fact that it included a trans person um, at the forefront of it, there were other movies they could have picked that were much better. A24's I Saw the TV Glow um, by Jane Schoenbrunn. I think that's her last name. Uh, Trans director, trans themes all throughout that film. It's a great film. It's a really, really good film. Way, way, way better than Amelia Perez. Um, you know, this this whole pick is very problematic. I hate to root against a movie, but I mean, again, this has 13 nominations. I mean, it, that's really, really unacceptable, I think. Um, like I said, I really hope it doesn't win. Currently, its predicted win is Best Supporting Actress for Zoe Saldana. All of its other predicted wins have kind of fallen by the wayside because of all the controversy around this film. Um, I I don't have much more to say about it. I would avoid it like the plague. Don't see it. Um, One movie that I would not avoid is actually one of its competitors. Amelia Perez is actually nominated both in Best Picture category and foreign language film, or really international picture is what it's been renamed to, I think. Um, the other competition it has, which is also nominated in Best International Feature and Best Motion Picture of the Year, is I'm Still Here. This was a late edition for me, and I have to tell you, it quickly became one of my favorites of last year. Um, I I honestly think if more people saw it, it actually had a real shot at winning Best Picture. Um, I'm Still Here stars Fernando Torres as Eunice Pava. Apologize if I got the last name on that wrong. Um, I'm Still Here is Brazil's submission for Best International Feature. Um, it follows the true story of the Pava family at the mercy of a fascist right wing government. Um, the patriarch of the family, Rubens Pava, is formerly a congressman for the Labor Party in Brazil. He's no longer in that elected position. However, one day, a group of men who claim that they're part of the army, although they have no uniforms, no badges, and no identification of any kind, tell him that he needs to come with them and be deposed. His family is confused, they don't know what's going on, and they never see him again. Um, the movie is absolutely essential viewing. I think it's one of the most contemporary pieces of our time. It is important. The acting is incredible. The screenplay is outstanding. The emotional gut punch of the film is very difficult. Uh, I mean, I found it more impactful than I think almost every other film on the list. Um, it is, I mean, I would go as far as to say it's a masterpiece. Um, it might be from Brazil, but I would say that there's a lot of Spielberg influence in it, um, particularly in like Spielberg's era of um, like Saving Private Ryan or Schindler's List. It's kind of got that same level of gravitas to it that I mean, really just makes it gripping from start to finish. I mean, it was one of the movies where I found myself kind of holding my breath for like the entire second half of the picture. Um, it is really, really very intense. It should definitely win Best International Feature. I think it should. Yeah, I think it should have a better shot at winning Best Picture than I think it does right now. And I also think Fernanda Torres is really great in this movie. I mean, as this mother just trying to hold her family together and trying to live a normal life while I mean, essentially being terrorized by the government that she's living under. Um, it's a performance that will stick with you. It's memorable, and second, really, only to Mikey Madison and Honora. I think it was a really impressive performance. Um, so yeah, I mean, if you get the chance, I'm Still Here. It should be available to stream soon. Highly recommend it. But you know, it's a drama, but for me personally, as somebody who is very politically engaged, I found the movie to be almost a horror film. It was very, very, very impactful and difficult, and worth all of the praise it's gotten. So now moving on, Nickel Boys. Now Gina and I disagree on this one a little bit. Ramel Ross has, I think, been very overlooked this season for his stunning directing in Nickel Boys. This is adapted from Colson Whitehead's novel of the same name. Ross brings these characters to life in a unique, experimental, and I personally thought downright impressive cinematic experience. Um, One thing that I think is also really inexcusable from the Oscars this year is not nominating cinematographer Jomo Frey for this film. If there's one thing people will walk away from this film, and I'm sure Gina, you might agree with this, is the cinematography of it. It is an experimental and very impressive bit of cinematography. You know, whether you like the film or not, I think technically the film is like on a level that is almost unprecedented. And the fact that he's not nominated this year, uh, I don't even know. I'm not sure how he wasn't nominated. I mean, that's such a disrespectful snub, honestly. I don't really know what they were thinking on that one. Um, I personally love this movie, but I know Gina, you saw it. What was your thoughts on this?
Well, the theme was good. You know, it's historically based, but my husband and I together felt it was way too choppy. The scenes were too choppy, and the ending didn't come together well enough for us. If perhaps we had read the book, we would have understood the ending. So we're not thrilled with the movie.
That you know, and that's an interesting take too, because I think that if you've read the book, the there is this twist at the end that I will not spoil for you right now, but there is this twist at the end. And I was thinking about it because after we talked about it, I was thinking about, you know, if they didn't shoot this movie the way that they did, how could they have actually depicted that twist on camera? And I ran into a wall. I couldn't figure it out. So I mean, the thing is that the movie is very experimental, and I think maybe some of that experiment doesn't work. You know?
Well, I like the first person point of view with the camera
Yes.
being the character.
Yes.
Until then, they changed it later on,
Yes.
which kind of again threw us for a loop. But that first person camera was really interesting.
Yeah, and I think, you know, that first person camera is something that hasn't been done a lot. Um, and places that it has been done, you know, I think of Gaspar Noé in particular in Enter the Void. Um, you know, I think this kind of elevated that type of cinematography in a way that I haven't seen done before. And um, for those of you who don't know what Nickel Boys is about, Nickel Boys is about um, it is a true story. It's taking place at the fictional Nickel Academy, but it is based on a real school that actually existed. It was a reform school for young boys, and um, the school was eventually found to be horrifically abusive and, in fact, murderous of um, the young, particularly black boys that were going to the school. Um, you know, I mean, a lot of the, you know, you see right in the beginning of Nickel Boys how the white students at this reform school are treated much differently than the black boys going into this reform school. And I think I think with the twist in mind, I think the film does as good a job as depicting at that twist as I think they could have. But I think maybe reading the book before you see the movie might be a good choice for this one. Because, like Gina said here, I think that twist is a bit of a loop. You know, it throws the audience for a bit of a loop. And I think without um, knowing it beforehand, it might be difficult to follow, particularly with how they're shooting this movie and how it's being edited. Um, I will say, right now it's a toss-up for Best Adapted Screenplay between this and Conclave. Um, I think Conclave is going to get it, but I really like this movie. It will be available on uh, Prime, because I believe this is an MGM film, whatever's left of MGM, and that's an Amazon company, so you'd probably see it on MGM Plus or Prime Video, and that should be available soon. Highly recommend it. I think it should have gotten more views this year, and I think it is absolutely a disgrace that Joe Maffrey did not get nominated for this movie. And frankly, he should also win in that category for cinematography. I really, it is criminal that he was not nominated. All right, so we have two more movies on our list of best pictures, and I know we also wanted to talk about one other movie that I think we're both rooting for. Um, first of the three remaining that we want to talk about here is Wicked. So, like, here's the deal. I never saw Wicked on Broadway. Um, I am a huge fan of The Wizard of Oz, and because I'm such a huge fan of The Wizard of Oz, I have been rather averse to all of the spin-offs that have come from it over the years. Not to say all of them have been bad, some of them have been quite good. Um, I was personally a fan of Tin Man on Sci-Fi Channel. I thought that was fun. Um, but like Oz the Great and Powerful with James Franco, I was not super keen on. So I would be lying if I told you I walked into Wicked and wasn't feeling a bit apprehensive. Um, you know, I think The Wizard of Oz is not just a classic, but I mean, it changed cinema as we know it. I mean, particularly the shot where she's in sepia and then walks into color. Um, that's, that's a shot that changed entertainment history. And I also think that the music in The Wizard of Oz is still so beautiful and puts me at such a place when I listen to it mentally that I think few other musicals ever have. And I mean, it's no Amelia Perez, but it's just such intimate and honest music, especially like, when Garland sings over the rainbow or, you know, even like, even the Yellow Brick Road song. I mean, there's there's so many moments in the original Wizard of Oz that are to me just solidified in time. They don't need to ever be touched again. So when I saw Wicked was becoming a movie, I was hesitant, and I got to tell you, I was blown away. I loved it. I loved it. I've seen it many times now, more times than I could probably count. I've gone back to see it with some drinks. It's a great time with drinks, especially when you know the lyrics. Um, I have to tell you, I'm not an Ariana Grande fan, and to me, I walked into this movie and thought to myself, she is a real uphill battle for me because I don't like her. I don't like her persona. I don't like who she is outside of this movie. And she had a real uphill battle to kind of win me over. And boy, does she. She's great. She's really good. Um, I mean, she sings in this movie so well that I'm kind of like, why don't you do this in your actual career? I mean, she's so good. Um, and she's very much matched in talent with her co-star Cynthia Erivo, who did not have an uphill battle for me. I mean, I kind of knew she was going to be awesome. Um, both these women are great. The only reason that they're probably not going to win this year is because this is only part one of a two-part film, and they will probably win at the next year's Academy Awards. But, Zoe Saldana is supposed to win for Best Supporting Actress for Amelia Perez. I'm praying that they actually give that to Ariana Grande this year because I don't think Saldana and Amelia Perez deserve any of those awards. Um, I think Wicked, when I just come down to it, I mean, it's just a fun movie. It's just fun. I mean, I really, outside of the fact that it ends, halfway through the story, I don't have any flaws. I mean, it's just a blast. Um, I think if I would be really nitpicky, I'd say like maybe some of the musical numbers go on a little bit too long. Excuse me. And that could at times feel like the musical numbers are a bit disjointed, but that's really nitpicking. Um, I personally don't feel all of them sound that way. I think really, if I were to pick out, like, go down the list of all the songs in the musical, I'd maybe only find one or two that feel that way, like they run a little bit long. Um, it's crazy to me. John Chu directed this movie. He directed Crazy Rich Asians and In the Heights, and um, I thought his direction on this movie was fantastic. One scene in particular, I thought he did so well. It's brought me to tears every single time I've seen the movie. Um, and he didn't even get nominated this year for Best Director, um, which is another snub this year. It just really very strange choices this year. Um, but yeah, he didn't even get nominated. I thought he directed again, like particularly that one scene, so beautifully. Um, the acting is great. Um, I really had no complaints. I hope you guys go see it. I hope you watch it at home. Watch it with a big group of people. It's so fun. Um, Knowing the lyrics is really great. It's a movie that you could watch over and over and over and over again for years to come, and you will love it every time. They have certainly set the bar very high for themselves for part two. I hope they don't screw that up because this was a very, very strong part one. So strong that I'm actually nervous for part two. I like, please, please stick the landing because this is way too good for them to miss the mark on the second part. So predicted right now, its predicted wins are Best Production Design, Best Sound, and like I said, it's a toss-up for Best Supporting Actress. I think the more Amelia Perez faces controversy, the more likely it is Ariana Grande might win. As far as production design and sound, I think it's almost a shoe-in for those. I would also say they were talking about how Conclave is predicted to win for Best Editing. I don't know. I think Best Editing might, maybe should go to Wicked. Um, the it's a 2 hour and 40 minute musical. It's a lot of cuts. There's a lot of advanced cinematography going on, and of course, the sound editing around it also is kind of very involved. So I think it. I would probably also award it for best editing. Last but not least, on the best picture category, is The Substance. So, The Substance. Anybody who's been a fan of the Oscars knows that this is weird. They don't usually nominate horror movies. And yet, here we are. The Substance is nominated for 5 Oscars, including Best Actress Demi Moore, Best Director, Best Original Screenplay Coralie Farge, Best Hair and Makeup, and Best Motion Picture of the Year. Well, look, I'm a horror fan. I am very excited to see this movie nominated. I am very excited for the director, who I think is a talent to watch. Coralie Farge, whatever her next picture is, line up. It's going to be good. She is a very cine literate director. This movie is loaded with references to other films. There are directly recreated shots and sets from The Shining, 2001: A Space Odyssey, David Lynch's Long Highway, um, uh, David Cronenberg's The Fly, Robert Zemeckis' Death Becomes Her. There's so many great references in this picture. And despite all those references, still manages to be very original. The Substance stars Demi Moore as Elizabeth Sparkle. Elizabeth Sparkle is kind of like Jane Fonda towards the last third of her career. Elizabeth Sparkle is doing like a jazzercise thing on TV every morning, and she's just turned 50. And her producer boss, played, I have to say, played hilariously by Dennis Quaid, who I think also might have been snubbed for Best Supporting Actor. He's he's such a cartoonish, terrible person in this movie, and he is just laugh out loud hilarious. Um, he tells Elizabeth Sparkle that she's 50 now, so her career is basically over. And Elizabeth doesn't really want to hear that. And she is presented with the opportunity to take something called the substance. And the substance offers her the opportunity to become younger, more perfect, and more beautiful than she's ever been before. But it's only for a week at a time. And then she has to go back to being herself the next week. And then she could do it again the week after that. Her younger, more perfect clone of herself is played by Margaret Qualley, who also did not receive a Best Supporting Actress nomination. Weird snub. Um, but as of right now, Demi Moore is the favorite to win Best Actress. She won at the Golden Globes, and she has kind of nearly swept the award circuit, um, with a few exceptions there. Um, if I'm being totally honest, as much as I'm so happy that this movie is nominated, I don't actually know if I'd give it the awards. Um, I think if we're talking Best Actress, Mikey Madison or Fernanda Torres or even Cynthia Erivo all have more involved and more um, challenging performances. Um, if we're talking direction, I think there is where Coralie Farge could possibly win. Um, Her directing is spot on. Um, the original screenplay category, I think, is very plausible for it. I would personally probably give it original screenplay. Um, Outside of that, though, I think the other nominees this year are a bit stronger. I think, although it's splitting hairs a little bit. Um, I think certainly the hair and makeup for the substance is going to be a huge winner. I mean, the practical effects in this movie are nothing short of incredible. Um, I mean, don't get me wrong, also, I think Demi Moore's performance is very good. But, I said that this movie had a lot of Kubrick influence. And one thing about Kubrick is a lot of times characters in Kubrick movies um, talk when they need to and don't talk when they want to. And that's very much what's going on in The Substance. Demi Moore's character, I, I don't even think she says more than 30 lines in the movie. I mean, she really doesn't talk all that much. Um, and a lot of the movie is expressed through her face. And, one scene in particular has gotten her a lot of praise, which is this scene where she's supposed to go out on this date, and the date doesn't happen because um, she's struggling with her appearance, and she doesn't think that she can actually go out. And that scene is impactful, and I think it's a very important scene to the movie. And I think um, Moore acts it great. But like, if you're telling me that that's a comparable performance to Mikey Madison being tossed around in Honora by the Russian goons, or Fernando Torres being stalked and starved in I'm Still Here, or Cynthia Erivo's powerhouse performance in Wicked, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if her performance meets that level. Um, like I said, I mean, I'm really happy the substance is there, and I hope it changes the tide for future award shows in that more horror movies are nominated. I think there were other horror movies this year that also maybe deserved a nomination, particularly Heretic with Hugh Grant, I think was awesome. He probably should have gotten a Best Actor nomination for that. He didn't. Um, the past bunch of years, we've seen the Oscars completely snub horror in ways that are confounding to me. I mean, Toni Collette didn't get nominated for Hereditary. Florence Pugh didn't get nominated for Midsommar. Essie Davis didn't get nominated for The Babadook. Um, um, Lupita Nyong'o didn't get nominated for Us. Um, I mean, there are so many examples of horror doing awards-worthy work and not being recognized for it. And I am truly, I mean, exhilarated that this movie was nominated, and I do think it deserves those nominations. But the one it's predicted to win, I don't think it actually deserves. So that's the end of our Best Picture list. Gina, are there any movies you wanted to talk about that you hope do well this week?
Well, you've convinced me to see a good number of them. Yeah,
Oh,
I,
good.
I haven't seen any except for Nickel Boys, and I already mentioned that it was a little choppy for us.
Yeah.
Um, but the other night I did get a chance to see Flo, an animated
Yes.
cartoon, and it was about a cat and his experiences in a flood. And all you could really do is just smile. There was no talking at all, no conversation
Yeah.
except for the cat saying meow. And I love cats, and I love to hear them say meow. Um, but I was curious, it's a Latvian film,
Yeah.
correct? And there was no speaking at all. I guess
No.
that the point is anybody in any country could see it and just enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that I thought was so beautiful about that movie is like it's very accessible for everybody. You could be an adult, you could be a kid, you could be a teenager. It's a story about a cat, you know? And it's so simple and yet it's so beautiful. And I think the animation style is very unique.
Oh my goodness, it looked like it was reality,
Yeah,
but even more beautiful than beautiful reality.
they do it in this way where it's just noticeable that it's a cartoon, particularly like in the textures of it. But like when you're looking at like, any wide shot in the movie, it looks just stunning. And what I also like loved so much about it was you're right, it doesn't have any dialogue and yet so much is said.
Yes, yes.
Between the cats, the dogs, the capybara, all these random animals that appear. And all they do is grunt and hiss at each other, and yet you got the entire
Story.
story,
Yeah.
And I think it's a testament to silent filmmaking. I mean, granted, it's not totally silent because you have the atmosphere and the music and the
Music,
sounds,
right? Mhm.
but I mean, it shows you that you could tell a deeply impactful story with no dialogue. And I think it's really one of the best kids movies of the year. Hands down. I mean, there was a lot of animated pictures this year. The Wild Robot, Inside Out 2, Moana 2. Um, I think this kind of eclipses all of them. I mean, maybe Inside Out 2 coming very close, but um, it's it's such a bold artistic vision in this movie, and it's like it feels like the little movie that could, you know? And I'm so happy to see it gaining this kind of awards praise. Um, I'm so happy to see it just kind of getting viewership. Like I said, this is available on HBO Max right now. I highly recommend it. It's also a short movie.
Yes.
I think it's less than an hour and a half. So if you're just looking for something to put on, something light, and easy, put on Flow, and just go with the flow. I mean, it's a really, really enjoyable picture. It's very, very family friendly. Um, there's there's almost nothing bad I could say about it. I think I actually gave it a perfect review when I saw it. Um, I highly recommend it, and if you get the chance, please give it a watch. And these filmmakers, you could tell that they knew what they were doing because it's very difficult to make an engaging, movie for over an hour that has no dialogue. So there is, there's nothing else to say about it, but it's just great.
The artistry was stunning.
Artistry was stunning, and it's like in some ways, it's a movie that I think everybody could relate to, right? It's about a cat that doesn't want to touch water, and like you could take whatever you want out of that. The water could be anything you want it to be, really, But I mean, it's just a story about a cat trying to avoid water, and I think, sometimes the best stories are our simplest ones. You know. So we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, I'm going to talk about this weekend's box office. Okay, so whoop. So we are back, and real quick, I just wanted to recap some of the movies that are at this weekend's box office. So I saw two movies last night. I saw two movies last night. I saw My Dead Friend Zoe and Last Breath. So I'm going to talk about Last Breath first because I to say it kind of snuck up on me a little bit. I saw the trailer for this movie for the past couple months, and it looked okay. It looked fine. The movie is actually much more engrossing than its trailer leads on. Oftentimes February is kind of a dump month. It's like all the movies that Hollywood doesn't know what to do with because they just got rid of, they just got through the awards season, and now it's just kind of like, what else do we put out? Last Breath is a story about well, there are 20,000 miles of pipes underneath our ocean or on our ocean floor. And those pipes transfer our fuel back and forth to countries, states, territories, etc. And there are people that have to go to the bottom of the ocean and maintain those pipes. And those people are called saturation divers. And Last Breath is the true story based off the documentary of the same name from 2019 of these group of saturation divers who experience a very terrible accident during the middle of one of their routine maintenance checks. And they have to go back and rescue one of their stranded divers. The movie stars Simu Lee. If I pronounced his name wrong, I apologize. Woody Harrelson and Finn Cole. All three of these guys do awesome jobs. The movie is shot with this very gripping sense of intensity. The underwater sequences are shot beautifully. They look really, really realistic and very nicely done. Uh, I'll tell you, you couldn't pay me enough to do that job. I actually looked up their salaries, and their salaries are not as high as you would think, considering it's one of the most dangerous jobs in the world. They're talking about going to depths of like up to 1,000 feet below the surface, which is just crazy to think about. And one of the things that the movie does very well is when things go wrong, it shows you how little light is down there. And like these guys are stuck on the ocean floor, and they can't see directly in front of their face. I mean, the level of claustrophobia is insane. And not to mention the fact that if he takes off his helmet, he explodes, because he's, pressurized. So it's like not only is he dependent on the air canister on his back, but he's also, in a pressure scenario, like literally under pressure, in this way that if his suit rips or his helmet breaks, he's going to pressurize and die. Um, the I think the script does fall a little short in some places, particularly in the setup. The setup is getting all this information to us, and that's fine. But some of the dialogue does feel a little bit stilted. There are points of they're trying to attempt to make something sentimental, and it feels a little bit forced. But once the movie, takes off and the mission is a go, oh boy, is this thing thrilling. I mean, it is a really, really wild ride. It is very intense. I honestly, I was pretty surprised by it. I really liked it. I think it's a really good winter movie theater experience. I mean, go see it. Um, Generally speaking, uh, I could see this honestly being released later in the year and being a blockbuster. Um, I'm a little surprised that they actually dropped it in February because I think it's a really strong picture. Um, I think I think the true story too that it shows. I mean, I'm not going to tell you everything because I want you to kind of be surprised by it. But when they actually tell you the facts at the end of the movie of how the true story really went down, you kind of just have to sit there and go like, that's a miracle. I mean, that's actually incredible. If that's really how this went down, that is insanity. That's how are they even alive? I mean, it's really, really um, stunning true story. I mean, even if the script falls short in certain places, the fact is that the scenario itself is gripping, and sometimes that's all you need. Plus the cast is strong. I mean, particularly Woody Harrelson and Simu Liu. I mean, they're really strong in these movies in this movie, and I mean, Harrelson's kind of playing, a laid back guy with a lot of experience and a little bit of a hippie, which is kind of who Harrelson is in real life. But, you know, he plays that role well, even if it's, kind of him. He's doing a great job in that spot. And Simu Lee, who is, um, he's uh, he's really the only character written with an arc of any type, and he performs that arc beautifully. I mean, he does a great job in this movie. Um, like I said, the action sequences in this are very intense. Um, it's definitely a popcorn film, and I recommend it. Go see it. It's a fun time. The other one that came out this week is My Dead Friend Zoe. A little bit more of a mixed bag on this one. My Dead Friend Zoe is an independent film. It's being distributed by Focus Features and I believe Briarcliff. I could be wrong on that though. Um, this is I had some decent expectations for this movie just because of the plot and what the trailer had shown. Um, you also have Morgan Freeman in this movie, which is rare to see him now. So he's only doing a movie if he wants to. So I mean, he obviously connected with this script. So I was like, okay, like, show me what you got. And the truth is that the setup for this script is good, and the rest of it goes very flat. Um, the setup is Merritt and her friend Zoe are stationed in Afghanistan. Um, they are the only two women in their platoon, so they kind of naturally kind of gravitate towards each other and become friends. Um, there comes a point where they have the option to re-enlist or kind of return home. And years later, we jump ahead and find Merritt and Zoe in a group therapy session talking about the traumas that they experienced while serving. And early on, it's established that Zoe has no intention of doing one of these group therapy sessions. She says, "Don't ever let me go into one of those settings." And the very next scene, they're sitting in one, and this guy, one of the other people in this session, is speaking, and Zoe, she just can't handle it at all, and she stands up and accosts the guy and screams at him and insults him and says that she doesn't want to be here. And Merritt looks at her and goes, "You have to stop. Like you have to be quiet." Only for it to be very quickly revealed, and this is very early on, obviously the title of the movie. Zoe's not there. Zoe's dead. Zoe is just at this point, uh, if she's not a figment of her imagination, it is. I mean, she's a schizophrenic who is Merritt is a schizophrenic who's seeing her dead friend. Um, I think the goal of the movie is very noble. They're talking about veterans who have PTSD and are living with PTSD, and I think the message of the movie is very pointed. I think the third act of the movie features a really, really strong performance from uh, Sonequa Martin Green, who is playing Merritt. She has one scene in particular which is very emotional. Um, With that being said, though, the surrounding movie is very slow. There doesn't seem to be a huge plot going on. The um, the final few moments of the movie, I think, really hurt it. Um, it goes from poignant movie about PTSD to kind of an after school special PSA, which is not, I don't think that's what the intention of the director was when he was making it, but that's how it kind of comes off. At the end, they actually have the cast and crew of this movie advertise a QR code to scan and donate to um, a relief organization for veterans. And while I don't think that there's anything inherently wrong with that, I do feel that it kind of shifts the tone of the movie into something that is more of an academic piece than it is actually a film. Um, like I said, I mean, I think the message is good, um, but I think that they probably could have also been a bit more direct in certain aspects of it too. Um, you know, the movie is talking a lot about um, veterans who struggle with suicidal thoughts. Um, those thoughts and feelings, I think, could have been depicted better, particularly by Natalie Morales, who's playing Zoe. I typically really like her. I thought in this movie, she's not very convincing emotionally. She doesn't strike me as the type of person who is struggling mentally, at least in the scenes that we see her in. Um, I think Sonequa Martin Green does a very good job at depicting somebody really dealing with grief. Um, but I think overall the movie really struggles to find its footing. Um, the director, um, the director has said that this movie was biographical and based on his real platoon mates, but those people are not actually who's being depicted in this. Maybe he's doing that for legal reasons, I'm not sure. But there does definitely seem to be a bit of a disconnect between the director's biographical ideas for the movie and what actually translates onto screen. So, like I said, bit of a mixed bag. I don't think it's a bad movie. I don't think it's a great movie. I think it falls very in the center for me. But if I had to pick a movie to see this weekend, it would be Last Breath. It was a great time at the theater. So, that concludes today's episode. Gina, you have any thoughts?
No, I'm excited to see a lot of the films now. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, and I'm excited to watch this weekend's Oscars. I'm super stoked for it. One of the things that we're doing this weekend, I think, something that maybe I could inspire other people to do, is me and my friends are having an Oscars viewing party, and because so many of the films are dealing with international topics, The Brutalist, Amelia Perez, um, I'm still here, um, The Substance, even. Um, we're doing appetizers that are all themed and uh, originate from the countries of origin as the films. So, The Brutalist, I think we're doing potato latkes. Um, for the substance, anybody who's seen the movie will get this. We're doing shrimp cocktails. Um, for oh, what are we doing for Honora? I think we got some Russian dish for Honora. So I mean, that should be really fun. Um, I know Wicked. I think we have rainbow cookies for dessert, which is going to be fun, and like literally the colors of Wicked, so it's perfect. So yeah, I mean, get creative with it. Have a fun time at the Oscars this year, and next week we'll be back to talk about the results. All right. Well, pleasure talking with everybody today. Come back next week. And as always, you can subscribe to The Long Islander for $45 a year. We deliver right to your door. And we cover everything from politics, sports, local news stories, special interest stories, and entertainment. I'm your host, Sam Ashkenazy. Gina Florentino-James is with me. This is the Long Islander News Podcast. Thank you very much.